Welcome to the Good Growing Podcast. I am Chris Enroth, horticulture educator with University of Illinois Extension, coming at you from home, Illinois, and we have got a great show for you today. I'm starting to itch. I've got bites all over me. It is mosquito season. Feels like mosquito season is starting earlier and earlier every year and going on later and later every year. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. There are definitely some issues with that. And you know I'm not doing this by myself. I'm joined, as always, every single week by horticulture educator Ken Johnson in Jacksonville. Hey, Ken.
Hello, Chris. Yeah, fortunately, it's been kind of breezy and cool, so mosquitoes aren't going too crazy, or haven't been. But with all that rain, it's a matter of time. Yes.
I mean, I do literally already have mosquito bites, and we're at the end of May, and that's probably to be expected. At least for me, I'm a mosquito magnet. They are drawn to me. They just know where I am. We once, as a child, we went on vacation to a little place off the coast of Georgia, I believe, little St. Simon Island, which it's just literally a swamp off the coast of Georgia. And I think we counted, I had over 80 mosquito bites, and it was miserable. But yeah, and that's pretty common for me though. If we're in a mosquito-y place, they're coming for me.
All right, so just bring Chris with wherever you go. You'll be fine.
I guess I should add myself to this list of treatments we're going to talk about. Oh goodness. But yeah, I mean, I think mosquitoes, they are becoming more and more common in terms of where they're falling earlier and later in the year. We used to think it's fall. We don't have to worry as much about mosquitoes, or early spring. We don't have to worry as much about mosquitoes, but there's a few new species. I think I might get the genus wrong, but I think it's Aedes japonicus. That is the Asian tiger mosquito. If I might have that one wrong, people feel free to correct me.
Albopictus is Asian tiger.
Albopictus. Okay. Well, there's a japonicus one too, which I know in reading that one is more cold tolerant than a lot of the native ones and some of the other introduced species. And so they're finding more, they're finding mosquitoes later into those, or earlier into these cooler times of year. And so, it can just be like our first warm day of spring and boom, there's a mosquito.
Yes. Good times.
Good times, folks. Yeah, but I think with the show, what we're going to talk about, Ken, are treatments. You can go online and find just a litany of things, just lists of do this, do that. This will keep you safe from mosquito bites. I see that a lot. Kill mosquitoes, keep yourself from being bitten, all those kind of things. So we're going through the list today.
Let's do it. Start with the things that don't work. Or maybe we should talk about, so you mentioned, you get bit by mosquitoes a lot. So some people say they get bit a lot. Some people say they never do. And there is some truth to that. So some people are more attractive than others to mosquitoes. So I'm trying to think, what is it? I think people with type O blood, some studies have suggested type O blood is more attractive. People that are pregnant are more attractive. If you drink beer, or have been drinking beer, you may be more attractive.
That must be it.
So,
well, we figured that one out for me. But I wasn't drinking as a child, so I don't know what that was about.
So I guess those are, well, yeah, with the beer drinking, you have control over. But there's something like 400 different chemical compounds that humans kind of give off from their skin and stuff that may play a role in attracting mosquitoes. So there's all kinds of different chemicals they're getting attracted to, sweat, lactic acid, things like that. It's believed that genetics is one of the bigger roles in attracting mosquitoes. So if you are very attractive, blame your parents. It's their fault.
I will blame my parents. That's a good one. And so, and apparently my parents, they must have had some type of recessive gene that just became the dominant one in me, because they were always fine. So,
and it could be that they could be getting bit too. Some people react more to the bites too, so that when mosquitoes are biting, they're injecting saliva, which is going to prevent the coagulation and kind of suppress the immune system too, so they're not getting attacked. And some people are allergic to that or more allergic. Mm-hmm. I guess that's why you get those welts. So some people may be getting bitten, they just don't react very much to that, where others could be particularly sensitive. So you could have a double whammy that you're more attractive and particularly sensitive too.
Nice. Hey. Well, in the mosquito dating game, I'm winning. So the ladies love me. Because it's the ladies that need the blood meal to lay their eggs. The males are not biting you. They mate. Can they be pollinators? Can they visit flowers?
Being on nectar pollinating. So they're good.
It's those ladies. Yes. Have to get you.
I'm not going to touch that one.
Well, then we should probably switch our subject ever so slightly to the techniques touted online in, between family members and your groups of friends, somebody overhearing you online at the pharmacy, trying to get some itch relief, so these home remedies, so to speak, or these techniques that just have been touted over the generations of getting rid of mosquitoes, because the mosquito is something that has really followed human beings since time began. Like since the beginning of our species, we have been plagued by mosquitoes and mosquito-borne illness. That is just a constant factor in the history of humans. So we got a lot of weird stuff that we've contrived to come up with things. Actually, like there was this idea that there's no reason for a human to like an onion or garlic, because most other animals do not like the taste of those things. But it is believed that early humans started eating those because we thought it warded off mosquitoes, and so it became parts of our diets. Now we love it. I love onions. It's almost in everything. Same with garlic.
Interesting. I had not heard that before.
Yes. Oh, you just wait till I finish my mosquito book, Ken. Still on page 80, but so I'm working on it.
Get there eventually.
Yeah, we'll see. So, all right, to the list. Now, the things that we're going to talk about first are things that you'll find these online. You'll find people talking about these, but they really have not been proven to be effective. They don't have a great track record of working consistently or at all sometimes. So the first one is one that I have heard, but this one is a lot of work, is to attract purple martins to your yard. So that means you got to have like a purple martin birdhouse, which that's a big investment in of itself. You got to protect it from predators and all that. And the idea here is if you have purple martins, it's going to keep mosquitoes away. So Ken, is this a functioning, working way to keep mosquitoes away?
Probably not. So they may eat mosquitoes, but the mosquitoes aren't very big. So they're probably going after bigger insects to feed on. So if they are eating mosquitoes, they're not going to be a major part of their diet, and they're not going to have a significant impact on those mosquito populations. And you could also throw bats into the mix. Yeah. Another one that's always, have your bat houses attract bats to eat mosquitoes. And again, while they may eat them, again, they're going to get more, moths, beetles, things like that. There's more to them. That's going to be a lot more attractive to them than the little tiny mosquito. Yeah, they may eat them, but again, they're eating other things too. They're not solely eating mosquitoes. So they're probably not going to have a really big factor on those mosquito populations in your landscape.
Yeah, that's true. I would say that, I know a lot of folks, they try to put up bat houses, and that's probably its own show. How do you attract a bat to your yard? There's many different species of bats. They all have their different habitat needs and wants, and then their life cycles. So, I'd say that's a whole show in and of itself, drawing bats into your yard just to eat mosquitoes. Yeah, Ken said it. They eat all kinds of, if it's flying in the air, they eat it. When we had our cow barn, we would throw rocks in the air and we would watch bats swoop down and try to grab the rocks. So like They're just eating things that are flying around in the air.
And I was at University of Florida. They've got 2 giant bat houses, and every evening people would come out and watch them leave the houses and stuff, and you'd be constantly getting bit by mosquitoes. So it was.
Where are the bats going?
It was right next to Lake Alice on campus, and you're just constantly getting buzzed by mosquitoes and bit.
Yeah,
right next to the bat houses. So
yeah. So purple martins, bats, hey, they would be great to have in the landscape. They'd be great to have in your yard, but not necessarily going to be a thing that's going to reduce mosquito population or prevent bites from occurring in your backyard.
Yes. So another one we hear about, and this goes for a lot of different animals, but for the sake of our show, we're going to do mosquitoes, is the sonic devices. So they give off buzzing noise. So with mosquitoes, it's some of them are supposedly mimicking the male mosquito, because once females mate, so females will take take a blood meal, lay eggs. Once they've mated, they're not going to be supposedly messing with males anymore, so they'll keep them away. Or it's supposed to mimic the sound of a dragonfly's wings. Neither of them work. There's been no studies that ever showed that they work. So if you really want to find out, get one. Sit outside with it on, see how many land on you. Turn it off, see how many land on you. It's probably going to be the same amount or close to it.
Probably. We did that experiment, but with mice, and we installed these mice sonic repellents throughout the house. And a week later, we had a mouse in the house once again. So at least when it comes to mice, I know not effective. So the mosquito one, I'm like, it sounds too gimmicky to be true, So I will say one of them that it drives me a little crazy, and I do know that there's a few folks that have them in their backyard, are the lights, the bug lights, mosquito lights, the ultraviolet, black light, any form of light to attract in this case, they're hoping to attract mosquitoes, which then gets zapped, trapped on a piece of sticky paper, some way it gets trapped into some way or form or killed. And those, you have said this multiple times on the show, Ken, that they're not effective. They are actually probably killing more beneficial insects, or more of our nocturnal insects like moths, at night than any mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are not necessarily drawn to light, which I guess maybe we'll get into some of those things that they're more attractive to. Also, when it comes to like what human breath, that exhale CO2, they see that heat signature that we have, and then of course our sweat glands. We do release kind of these pheromones that can draw them in, or aromas, and so that does not occur with these light traps. So we're killing far more kind of beneficial or benign insects than anything else. And we're taking food away from the spiders. I feel like the spider is our friend in this fight, because we have a light in our house. It's inside, but there's a window there, and it's a light that is on frequently at night. And we have so many orb weaver spiders outside that window, capturing all manner of insects, mosquitoes, a lot of flies, midges. We have a yellow jacket wasp in there right now. They captured a yellow jacket. Spiders, they're our friends in this fight against, well, not really, but
everything.
They eat everything too. They're just like the lights.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a bug zapper, go in and empty that out, and you can look at what you're catching. Yeah, like I said, moths, lacewings. Probably not. You may get a few mosquitoes in there, but again, not enough that's really justifying killing everything else that you're catching. And so a lot of times I see them on, for sale online, marketplace, or I'm always tempted to buy them just so I can throw them away, but that'd get really expensive.
Yes. There are some times, so we should probably fact check this one, but I have heard that the color, like the yellow part of the light spectrum, is not as attractive to many insects or nocturnal insects. So when say we have something going on at night, maybe we have a barbecue, maybe have friends over, maybe the kids are running around the neighborhood, and we want to have our outdoor lights on. Well, we have these LED lights where we can adjust the color of them. And so I've adjusted our nighttime lights to be yellow when we have to have them on, just so we can see what we're doing outside. I honestly have not noticed any difference in whether we're drawing in more insects or not, because usually we're pretty busy running around doing activities and things like that. But it's something I've heard, so it's something I've done. Whether it works or not, it's not really hurting me in any way. It actually makes that night, that evening atmosphere more pleasant, because it's not a harsh, bright light. So even in my eyes, I like it more.
Yeah, even in like the red, like when you're going out, a lot of times it's like so every year I enter the Firefly lottery in the Smoky Mountains and stuff. I still haven't gotten selected, but with that, they say if you have flashlights, make them red. So one, that won't mess with your night vision as much. It's not going to affect like the fireflies, lightning bugs, whatever you want to call them. That flashing pattern, it's not going to disrupt it. So that would make sense. Yeah, that yellow-red spectrum. Probably not going to affect insects as much as into the blue. Yeah, especially with a lot of LED bulbs. Outdoor bulbs are a little more of that yellow or that blue nowadays.
Yeah, so turn your lights off, folks, if you don't need them.
Yes. All right, so another one you hear about and used a lot of times for like pest management or monitoring anyway is dishwashing detergent, soap, whatever, in a pan of water, and use that for like Japanese beetles and stuff like that. But we're physically putting them in there. A lot of times when people are doing like pollinator studies, studying bees and stuff, they'll put out these pans painted yellow or blue, put water in there, some soap, so that the insects are attracted, they drown, and they can collect them. I'm assuming this is kind of the same idea with that. Put out the soapy water, mosquitoes are attracted to it, they'll die. They're not going to be terribly attracted to it. Again, you may catch the occasional one, but anything that gets in there, insect-wise, is probably going to be trapped and killed. So, again, not that practical. Probably not working all that well, collecting all that many mosquitoes. Again, that's going to justify killing everything else that you're collecting.
Yeah. The other one, and I have heard this one also, is using like a brand name called Listerine or any other mouthwash. Some people say, well, I put that on my skin and I don't get bitten, or it helps to repel them. So there is something in a lot of these mouthwashes, eucalyptol, it's an aroma compound, which we'll talk about, I think, more here later on. But they do see that, eucalyptol can have an effect on mosquitoes if sprayed at a 75% concentration, but our mouthwashes contain less than 1% eucalyptol. So in terms of thresholds, you gotta get a gallon of Listerine and go swimming in it first, or submerge your clothes and saturate them or something. And even then, you're probably still not at that threshold, 75%. So that is not proven to be effective. And so I guess with all of these, some of the other ones that are also no research evidence showing their effectiveness: vitamin B, garlic, spraying yourself down with garlic, pepper spray, which that sounds terrible. Don't do that. Eating certain dietary supplements. There's just not any research. There's either no research showing that it works, or there's research showing that they don't work. That's basically what we can say here. And even people's anecdotal experiences, maybe they did put Listerine all over their skin and they didn't get bit that next night. But also maybe there were no mosquitoes out. Maybe something shifted in their own body that was less attractive to mosquitoes. What we're talking about here is we're trying to speak to effective remedies also across a general population. What happens in a specific backyard, that's out of our control. We worry about that. But generally speaking, across the state of Illinois, that's, I guess, our purview here at Illinois Extension. But yes, yeah, we know there's a lot of anecdotal stuff here.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd always, if in doubt, I would, check to see if there's any, say, legitimate research backing it up. A lot of places will say, "Oh yeah, according to our studies." Well, see if somebody independent from that company has actually studied the stuff, and it's not just their data. Because sometimes that get, I'm not saying for all, but sometimes that can be, the information can be selected in ways to make it look more effective than it really is.
Yes. Yep, that's true. And even a lot of our artificial intelligence bots, questionnaire for forms, they are scraping that information off of the web, and a lot of that information they're scraping is marketing information, which makes, and the bot or AI sees that and it says, "Oh, look, an effective treatment for this," wherein in fact they're looking at some type of like marketing piece for that company.
Yeah, just be careful.
Yep. Do your homework. Do your reading, folks.
All right. I'm sure there's a plethora of more things that people say work that don't really work. Probably only scratching the surface, but I guess in the interest of time, we'll move on. That could probably be a 2-part episode by itself. But some stuff that kind of works, maybe works. Do some of those. So mosquito-repelling plants, you see these marketed, was at a garden center this weekend. They had mosquito-repelling plants. So there's Citronella. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. There's a whole lists of them out there. So while these plants may contain chemicals that may repel or mosquitoes may not be attracted to or repel them or in some way keep them from biting you. Usually that's done in the lab setting and maybe a concentrated form of that chemical. And in your plants aren't giving off significant amounts of those chemicals. So it's not really going to work unless you're going to pick those plants, rub them all over your body, take a weed whacker to them. Basically, you have to release those chemicals into the air or put them on you for them to be effective. So the plants are just sitting there next to you. They're not really doing a whole lot of good when it comes to repelling mosquitoes. I mean, you could probably, I'm sure if we looked hard enough or spent enough time, you could probably find pictures or find mosquitoes sitting on, citronella plants or the mosquito repelling plants, just because they're not giving off a whole lot of it. And if they are giving enough, it's just around that plant. It's not spreading out kind of area wide. That's going to protect you or mask you from mosquitoes.
Ken, I do remember when we were at the poinsettia trials in Millstadt, and there was one company there set up that was selling mosquito repelling plants, for their season. So there was a lot of garden centers managers there, so they were advertising some of these plants that they were growing for garden centers. One of them was naturally repel mosquitoes. It looks like a geranium, but it just let's see, yeah, or it might be, no, it is a citronella. Yeah, it is citronella. It just looks more geranium like. And then on the flip side of this thing was scaredy cat, bunny's gone, and dog gone. It's like it's a company that is, they're kind of marketing that these plants planted in your yard is going to deter a group, different types of species from coming in and bothering you. But again, that's a marketing piece. That is not a research.
There's an ounce of truth to it. Those chemicals do repel, but in practical sense with the plants, it's not going to work unless you are somehow releasing that chemical from the plants, which is going to lead to the decline of your plants.
Yes,
for the most part.
Yeah. All right, tear your plants up now and rub them all over your body.
And that's not to mention, you could be allergic to them too. And
that would not be good. Another one, which we do use in our yard every so often, but it's more for the, again, I like the character that they bring. I like a little bit of fire in my evening, in the backyard, are citronella, candles, sometimes like torches. So we do use those. Again, I'm more going for the atmosphere. But I'm like, well, hey, if they do deter some mosquitoes from coming in and trying to bite me, that would be great. But the big thing here is that, there has been research on this, on citronella, on the product of like burning it. And for it to be effective, you have to be standing in the smoke. And that really, according to the studies, is only about 40% effective. I mean, if I'm going to have to stand in smoke and breathe it in, inhale it, I at least want to get over that 50% mark of reducing my chances of being bit by a mosquito. Smoke just wafting off into your backyard, into your neighbor's yard or wherever, if it's not surrounding you, if it's not all around you, it's not going to deter those mosquitoes from finding you, or from being bitten.
So yeah, unless you're standing right next to it, or if you're 5-10 feet away and the wind's blowing the opposite direction, probably not doing you a whole lot of good.
Yeah.
But it does look cool.
I like them, so I think it's fun. We do have some fire elements in our yard, which, fun fact, that's fire and water, #1 requests in landscape design for homeowners, as they want something, either fire, like a fire pit, or they want some water feature. We love them natural elements.
Combine them.
Yes. I've seen that a few times.
Waterfall coming out of your fire pit.
Yes, fiery waterfall. Yes. It's not Disney World, Ken. We don't have that kind of budget. Well, Ken, let's shift on to things that we know can work, can be effective, even if we're talking short term. And this first one, I know a lot of people probably don't want to hear this one, and we'll have our own critiques of this, but fogging and spraying. This is basically putting out some type of a chemical. I think some of them say that they are repellents. Some of them say that they are killing the pest. They're killing the insect, or in this case, the mosquito. But either way, you are using some type of, seems like a modified, the modified
like
leaf blower to disperse some type of chemical into your yard. This is very often only temporary. It's usually used before like a big event might be occurring. And it is certainly something that is not going to be permanent. The effects definitely wear off over the course of sometimes a few hours, maybe half a day, if you're lucky. It might depend on weather as well.
Yeah, it's like you mentioned, it wears off, so it's going to be repeated applications. Depending on the products being used, if it's an insecticide, more of a broad spectrum, you've got all of the non-target organisms you're affecting. I mean, you can say potentially affecting. You're going to be affecting because you're doing this area-wide. Pollinators, natural enemies, other beneficial insects, even insects that are just there. Again, those benign that we're not classifying as beneficial. They're coming into contact with that, potentially affecting them. So it's a temporary solution, and it's only affecting the adults. So you may kill them in your yard, but next door neighbor is going to have them. So eventually they're going to fly over. Eventually that insecticide is going to wear off, and they're going to be able to be in your landscaping. So you get temporary. And in my opinion, I don't think the potential side effects aren't necessarily worth it when it comes to managing them.
Yeah. Well, and I know, maybe you and I are definitely odd. And maybe folks, you listening and watching us, you have a different viewpoint of the world as well. There are certainly people out there, though, that want to just nuke their yard, that they just want to totally eliminate any insect activity going on out there, that any bug is a bad bug, to quote Starship Troopers. But that Yeah, that you're just going to encounter that. I'm pretty sure, I have friends that they're like, oh, there's bugs out here. We got to fog this place. I'm like, well, you don't have to, but that's your choice. If you want to, I will try to tell you there's something, there are other ways you can do this. But yeah, some people just want to nuke the place and just be done with it.
Yeah, and obviously we need to, because mosquitoes can carry diseases that can affect humans. There is that balancing act of we have to do this vector control to protect the population as a whole. But then, balancing that with I guess, the more naturalist side of things, where we're trying to conserve these other organisms. So, I mean, there's a balancing act. I don't envy anybody that has to do that. You've got municipalities that will fog. The chemicals are going to vary as to how they're doing this, but there's a reason they're doing that too. So it's, I don't want to try to vilify, fogging and stuff like that. But, if you're doing it in your backyard, probably not terribly effective because it's temporary. They'll move back in over time.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Ken, this next thing is actually the one that prompted the entire show. You stumbled across this. You turned me on to this social media thing that's been buzzing around. The bucket of doom, which when you first described this, I was a little suspicious at first. But tell everyone what we're talking about who may not have seen this online. The bucket of doom.
Yes, bucket of doom. So this is something that comes from Doug Tallamy. So he's, if you're familiar with the Homegrown National Park, it's kind of movement of people planting native plants and stuff like that. And this is one of the things that they've been promoting. And this has been going on for several years, but it's on uptick the last week or two. I don't know, the algorithms thought I needed to see this. So here we are. But with this, you're taking a 5-gallon bucket, you're filling it 2/3 of the way full of water. And depending on where you're looking at that, the recipes differ as to what you're adding to that water. Some of it's straw or hay. Some of it's like just lawn waste, leaves, grass clippings, things like that. Basically, you're adding some kind of plant material to that. You're kind of letting that sit, get all nice and funky, letting the bacteria and the algae and stuff grow in that. You're going to add a mosquito dunk, a quarter of a mosquito dunk. So these are, you can find these in nurseries, garden centers, things like that. It's a Bacillus thuringiensis israeliensis is the strain. So it's a BT product. The israeliensis strain is specific to mosquitoes, black flies, other aquatic flies. So basically, you're putting that in there when the female mosquitoes, when they've taken a blood meal, they'll start to lay eggs. So they're going to find your nice bucket here. They're going to lay their eggs in there. Eggs will hatch. Larvae will start feeding. They'll ingest that BTI, and that BTI creates a protein crystal. They ingest it, basically cuts up their gut, and they die. It does not affect other insects. So basically, you're building a trap. Mosquitoes lay their eggs in it. You kill the larvae. And if you do this, you're eliminating the subsequent generations of mosquitoes. And the idea with this is you put 1 or 2 in your yard. If you can get a bunch of people in your neighborhood in the area to do that, this is working on the container breeding mosquitoes. So these need small amounts of water to do that. And they don't travel terribly far. So if you do this a little more kind of area wide, it can be effective. There was a group from Rutgers that did something similar in Maryland. And I'm not sure, they were using traps. I'm not sure if they're quite the same, but I think in parts of the city they were doing this in, they found like an 80% reduction in mosquito populations. Or they found a reduction in mosquito populations when they had like 80% of the people in the area of the yards using this. So if you use some of your neighbors to do this, it has been shown that this can help reduce those mosquito populations long term. But you got to make sure, I think you got to replace that mosquito dunk every 30 days. So if you don't, eventually that kind of runs out. And then you've just created a mosquito breeding factory. So there's a little bit of upkeep. You got to make sure the water level is maintained and stuff. But that's the general idea. And I think with the Homegrown National Park one, they're putting a stick in there. or whatever. So that if some animal falls in there, they can climb out too. So you're not the bucket of death for mosquitoes, not everything else.
I see. I see. Well, and Ken, I was suspicious of this because you're treating one part of the mosquito life cycle. You are treating the larva side of it, but there's still the female still needs to bite you for her blood meal, for her eggs, for her protein that to develop those eggs. So maybe at first you might not see that effect of this bucket, but again, if this is you, a handful of people surrounding you, this is you're building something out here. It's more of a long-term thing. You're eliminating that source, which can take time. It's not necessarily an overnight. It's going to be an instant fix for your barbecue that you're having in 2 days. But it is something that can be effective for the entire summer.
Yeah, long-term control. Yeah, if we do it right, and even if you're doing it yourself, I'd imagine you could still potentially see a little bit of a decline, depending on how big your yard is. If you got a postage stamp lot, you probably need help from your neighbors. If you got a larger area, maybe a little more effective. And I think with them, they're recommending putting this in a shaded area. So again, it's going to dry out a little less quickly. And when mosquitoes are kind of hanging out during the day, so usually mosquitoes are dusk and dawn feeding. There are some day biters as well. But a lot of times they're hanging out in shaded areas, a lot of vegetation and stuff. So they may be hanging out there already.
Okay. Yeah. And so let's go into our next one because it ties right into what you've just said, habitat modification. So this, you mentioned we have container breeding mosquitoes. There's mosquitoes that breed and lay eggs in all manner of habitats and environments. I remember when we had our drought of 2012, there was a particular species that seemed to thrive in those drier conditions. There's still mosquitoes, even though there was no rain going on. But I think there's a lot of mosquitoes that tend to plague us humans that are container breeding. And that's because we tend to have lots of containers in our yards, little kiddie pools, buckets that don't have BTI in them, or a lot of times the unseen gutter that needs to be cleaned out. Those can be just, they're above our head, out of sight, out of mind, but they can be an incredible reservoir for mosquitoes and breeding if you have a clogged gutter. Because there was one time we were cleaning out gutters. I do that regularly, but it had been maybe at least a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks since the last rain. And I go up there and I see our gutters full of water. I say, well, what in the heck? What is going on here? Well, it turns out a baseball got lodged in the downspout and was preventing any water from draining out of there. And it just sat for almost 2 weeks. It didn't dry out. And yeah, there were plenty of larval mosquitoes in there. And then, you let the water out, you fix the problem, but we have all of these areas where they can breed. So habitat modification, cleaning up the yard, cleaning the gutters, having good airflow, because mosquitoes aren't the strongest flyers. And so if you have good airflow through your yard, you could even have fans installed in a backyard area or just bring out a fan. I did one time put a fan next to a citronella torch, which that was a bad idea. Don't do that because the fan turned just black with smoke and it just sort of smoked out everybody that was sitting around there. So that didn't work very well. But it did help keep some of those weaker flying mosquitoes and also buffalo gnats as a side. That's a whole other thing though, from bothering us that night. But yeah. Change your habitat, make it less hospitable to mosquito breeding and for their just being there.
And even the plant saucers on your pots, those, and you dump in this stuff at least once a week. Just pick a day of the week, and that's going to be your day. You dump the plant saucers, empty out the kiddie pool. You got old tires. When we bought our house, it came with a bunch of old tires. I don't know why. But we went in and drilled holes in all of them so that the water will drain out. And so basically just anywhere that water is collecting that you are capable of then dumping it out. Make sure you're doing that. If you've got a small pond, backyard pond, something like that, putting the mosquito dunks or something in there, or having minnows, something like that, they're going to eat the mosquitoes in there. There's a variety of different things you can do in that situation to help manage those populations. You mentioned, with the airflow, they like the really dense foliage and stuff in shaded areas. It's nice and damp, which is where they like to hang out during the day. Again, that's also attractive to a lot of other organisms. So again, it's that balancing act of, how much cleanup do you want to do? They like, underneath decks, stuff like that. It's nice, usually pretty damp, cooler area. They'll hang out there during the day. So there's a lot of areas that we're creating for them too, that they like.
Yeah. And usually underneath those decks, there's a layer of plastic often that the builder has put down, which, it's supposed to be pulled tight and hopefully sloped a little bit to allow the water to drain off. But very often there's ridges and ripples that hold water. And so it's just perfect spot for mosquito breeding. And then, of course, you're on top of that deck there, and they're blood meals right there. So it's everything they need. So why leave? The other thing also, when I know I've encountered this a few times with extension, if you have somewhere in the neighborhood, maybe it's an abandoned house, the person is gone for several months, and they have like an unmanaged pool that's full of water, check your local health department, because our local health department will do something about that. We've already mentioned this. Mosquitoes are a human health concerns, but so a lot of times our local health department, if there is that reported like a stagnant pool or unmanaged pool, they will go in and they'll at least treat it with BTI. But that varies based upon the town that you're in. So check your local health department if they do that. So
another one we can do to avoid mosquitoes is just stay inside. Don't go outside.
That sounds easy. That's too easy, Ken.
Assuming your screens and stuff are in working order and don't have holes in them. But I think, joke about it. But if we avoid the times when they're most frequently out, dusk and dawn, we can goes a pretty long way in avoiding bites. In our backyard, it's pretty shaded. We've got a lot of vegetative growth back there. That's also where we put the kids' swing set. Probably wasn't the best planning on our part, but when kids don't use it too much anymore. When they were younger, we'd go out swinging in the evenings, and once the mosquitoes started biting real bad, it was time to go in. So we would just go inside and come back out the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. That's the easy one. And we have definitely had the mosquito buzzing around our ears while we're trying to sleep, and fixing our window screens, replacing those, cut down on the amount of mosquitoes, flies, brown marmorated stink bugs, Asian lady beetle. Like it cut down so much on the amount of insects that were able to get into our house. So good screens, caulk and sealing those cracks and crevices around windows and doors. That is a very important way to keep insects like mosquitoes out of your house. And also, the double door system, which if you've ever gone into like a restaurant, you have to go through two sets of doors. Do you know why? It's to keep the bugs out. That is an effective deterrent to insects. If you've ever gone through doors and you feel a strong gust of wind on the top of your head, that is an insect deterrent to keep them out of that structure. And for restaurant, it's mainly flies. But yes, that's why you have to have two doors if you are serving food to people, at least in this part of the world.
Yes, I never thought of that. Makes sense. Like if you go to a butterfly house, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Two sets of doors.
They have mirrors too, but yes.
Well, the next one that can be an effective deterrent is wearing light colored clothing, because some research does show that they tend to be attracted to darker colored objects, but also loose fitting clothing, because I've definitely been wearing like maybe a tighter shirt or something, and I have witnessed the mosquito land on my arm, and she's drilling around looking for that vein, looking for that blood meal, and they'll bite you a couple times as they're looking for that. And I've seen her multiple times going through my shirt into my skin on like a thin or tight piece of clothing. So loose fitting clothing can help to prevent some of that type of biting from occurring.
Yeah, mosquitoes have the long needle-like mouth parts, so they can. It's not something like we had the garden bite a couple weeks ago on buffalo gnats. They've got small biting mouth parts; they're not going to get through that. With those longer mouth parts, they can get through that clothing. So, and the light color clothing will help with the buffalo gnats, ticks as well. They're looking for those dark objects. So,
yep. That's why I got my beard trimmed and my hair cut so I can see those ticks better. And when we were cutting my kid's hair, guess what we found? A tick. Yeah. So short hair, light colored clothing. It is summer in Illinois, and that's what we got to do.
Maybe losing my hair isn't a bad thing.
There you go. That's sad. Do you see anything on my bald spot? Sides of sunburn? Well, Ken, one thing that this was something that I was first exposed to when I lived over in Manhattan, Kansas. We were doing landscaping, and our foreman, the crew that I was on, he started using CO2 traps, and I'm like, well, what the heck is that? And he remarked that they seemed to be effective, seemed to work. It seemed to reduce the amount of biting that they experienced. He also had told his neighbors about it. So they're all like, well, what is that contraption in your yard? And I think a lot of them had started putting them up in their yards. He said it's really made a difference, but it's a CO2 trap. And these have gotten pretty sophisticated, I think, lately. So what they do is they use a CO2 cartridge, and it emits CO2 in like a plume, kind of like how our breath exhaling would look to a mosquito trying to zero in on us for a blood meal. Some of them even contain octanol, which is a pheromone in our sweat. Some of them do have a little bit of a heat signature to them as well. So all of those things help to draw in a female mosquito. And so, but a CO2 trap, and it lures them into either a sticky card or some vessel that they can't escape from. And what we looked at, we did find a little bit of a little bit of studies on this, is that it does appear to be effective, but unlike the bucket of doom, it is not addressing the larval stage of the mosquitoes. So you're not, you're not stabbing the hydra in the heart. You're just cutting off one of the hydra's heads, so to speak. Like you're just killing the adults, and you are not addressing the reproduction that could be occurring here and the egg laying that could be occurring. So maybe in combination with the bucket of death, you would be addressing both life stages. That could considerably reduce the amount of mosquitoes biting happening in your yard. It is probably, again, one of those more longer term solutions that would be more expensive. Because I remember once upon a time I tried to get into things like paintball and all that, and CO2 is expensive. Those cartridges cost money. And they cost energy and everything, and to keep going, unlike the bucket of doom, which is sort of a passive device that the only management is just making sure you're putting that BTI dunk in every 30-ish days. But yeah, CO2 traps, there's a lot of different ones on the market out there.
I think some of them run off propane too, don't they?
Yes.
See pictures of like propane tanks set up. And
yep. Yeah, they're burning off propane. So they're burning natural gas, propane, some kind of combustible fuel source. So environmentally friendly, maybe not as much as, say, like, the bucket of death.
And something to try, maybe.
Something to try. I think, one of the pages said that, on a island off the coast of Florida, they did see that there was an effective control of mosquitoes when they had one CO2 trap per acre. But again, we're on an island. We're in a very isolated situation there. Probably more controlled environment than the middle of landlocked Illinois.
Probably industrial size ones too, not a backyard version.
I bet that's what they were using. Yes. They're probably trying to keep the mosquitoes off the tourists.
So then I guess the last one we have on our list, and probably the easiest one to do besides staying inside, which isn't that enjoyable, depending on who you are, is repellents. So we're using those insect repellents to, depending on their repellent, they're masking them, they're blocking the olfactory, there's the sensors on the antenna that they're using to find us. I think with DEET, there's been some research that comes out that it tastes bad to them. So when they land on you, they're tasting with their feet. And that DEET is unattractive. And also some of the blocking the sensors on the antenna too. But there's a bunch of repellents that the CDC lists on their website that are effective for mosquito, repelling mosquitoes. They're considered safe for pregnant women that are nursing as well. They point that out on the website. So it's DEET, which is probably the one that's most widely used. That's been around since, so discovered in the 40s. So it's been around for a while. Picaridin is another one. I believe that's been found to be as effective as DEET. IR 3535, oil of lemon eucalyptus, which is a plant-derived one, if that is of interest. Paramethane diol, or PMD, and 2-undecanone, which is another plant-derived one. I'll say the ones I see when I'm looking for repellents, again, vast majority are DEET, see picaridin now and then, and oil of lemon eucalyptus. Usually the three I see most often, at least where I'm shopping for repellents.
Yes, the main ones that I see that tend to pop up in like the pharmacy aisle in Cap are DEET, very common. Oil of lemon eucalyptus, also very common. So I think, yeah, it's one of those, a person, they're choosing whether they want to use something like DEET, or if that's synthetic choice, or they want to use that non-synthetic choice, that oil lemon eucalyptus. I think it was, again, retired extension entomologist Phil Nixon. He was really excited when Consumer Reports put out a study that oil of lemon eucalyptus was shown to be, almost just as effective at repelling mosquitoes as DEET was. And so, yeah, as you said, Ken, they're mixing up those signals for the mosquitoes.
Yeah, and with the DEET, I'm trying to remember now, it usually was like 50% less, or is going to last longer than like the 100% DEET, because there's other oils and stuff in there that make that last longer. The 100% DEET kind of dissipates pretty quickly. So I think usually you're looking for like a 30% range to get, they have good repellency, and it's going to last longer than the 100% DEET. And DEET can be kind of harsh on certain clothing and stuff. So like everything else, make sure you're reading the label and applying it properly, and being careful about applying it to certain types of clothing too, especially as you start getting into those higher percentages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think also, if you're not aware, I wasn't always aware of this. It is good manners to like step away from people when you're applying this, especially if they're eating. If you ever like a backyard barbecue and you just start DEETing up all around the hamburgers and hot dogs, probably a good idea. Step away. You don't want that on your food. You don't want that in like open wounds. It's supposed to be on the outside of you.
It doesn't taste good.
It doesn't taste good at all. What is wrong with your hamburgers? I thought those were supposed to be the famous Ken Johnson hamburgers. This is not what I was expecting. So yeah, and also oil of lemon eucalyptus. Here you go. You could use this as opposed to like mouthwash and get an effective concentration of that eucalyptol compound. That would be more repellent to a mosquito than dousing yourself with Listerine.
Yeah. And another chemically is permethrin. So that's a repellent and will also kill mosquitoes. And this is something you're applying to clothing. You are not applying this to your skin. So you can buy clothing that is already treated with this. Again, a lot of our more outdoor retailers, probably something that they're going to carry. And it will last for so many washings. I think some of the stuff I got, this was 13, 14 years ago, I went to Africa. I think it lasted for 20, 30 washings. You can also buy the permethrin to treat yourself. And again, you need to make sure you're following the label, and that'll last, maybe it doesn't, one of the stuff I bought, I think it lasts 5, 10 washings. So you got to reapply it, but that's on your clothing. It'll repel and the mosquitoes land on it it'll kill them too. So that's another option. I'd say if you're going, and probably not for everyday use, but if you're going to be going to an area where there's going to be a lot of mosquitoes, like say you take a vacation in August down to the Everglades and decide to go outside, that may come in handy.
And then get carried away by the insects. We never saw Ken again after that. Oh no, that would be me. We would never see Chris again after that. I would literally get flown off the ground by the amount of mosquitoes on me.
The next time I go to the Everglades in August, I'm bringing you with.
There you go. Just stick me out in front of the tent. I'll keep them off you. Oh. Well, that was a lot of great information about mosquito repellents, trying to avoid the bite, what works, what doesn't work. Well, the Good Growing Podcast, a production of University of Illinois Extension, edited this week by me, Chris Enroth, and a special thank you to Ken. Thank you for hanging out, going over the list of things that people say does affect us getting bitten by mosquitoes, and digging through some of the reading here to see what works and what doesn't. Thank you, Ken.
Yes, thank you. And just remember, everybody, do your homework. If it sounds too good to be true, a lot of times it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And let's do this again next week.
Oh, we shall do this again next week. We have a special guest coming on the show, Dr. Elizabeth Wally, to talk about grapes. Growing grapes in the backyard. That sounds like fun. She's going to talk all about it and cover the ins, outs, the ups, the downs, the goods and the bads, the highs and the lows, because there's quite a few with grapes. There's grapes. I've seen lots of problems with grapes, but we will get to that next week. So listeners, thank you for doing what you do best, and that is listening, or if you're watching us on YouTube, watching. And as always, keep on growing.